In a move that's shaking the foundations of US foreign policy, President Donald Trump has declared war, not on a nation, but on a network. A network of drug cartels that he says are poisoning America from across its southern border. From the Oval Office, Trump made it clear he's willing to launch military strikes inside Mexico to stop the flow of fentanyl and other deadly narcotics. Why? Let's connect the dots. His words were blunt. Would I launch strikes in Mexico to stop drugs? It's okay with me. He said the same about Colombian drug cartels.
We have nobody coming in through our southern border, but we know exactly how they get their things here, how they get the drugs here. Fentanyl, cocaine. Colombia has cocaine factories where they make cocaine. Would I knock out those factories? I would be proud to do it personally. I didn't say I'm doing it, but I would be proud to do it because we're going to save millions of lives by doing it.
Trump's justification, the staggering toll of the opioid crisis. He claims the US is losing hundreds of thousands of lives to drugs each year, and that the time for diplomacy is over. Action, he says, is overdue. And action is exactly what he's taking. Trump has already authorized expanded maritime interdiction operations in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific. US Navy vessels are now patrolling drug routes with renewed intensity, intercepting suspected traffickers before they reach American shores. But this isn't just about the sea. Trump has hinted at targeting cocaine labs in Colombia and has already greenlit strikes on vessels linked to Venezuela's drug networks. The message is clear. No cartel is safe, no matter where it operates. The scope of this campaign is unprecedented. It marks the largest US military mobilization in the Caribbean since the Cold War. And it's not just about stopping drugs. It's about reshaping America's posture in the hemisphere. But not everyone is on board. Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum responded swiftly and firmly, rejecting any notion of US military action on Mexican soil. She warned that such a move would violate Mexico's sovereignty and international law.
Yes, it's not going to happen. In fact, there was a statement afterwards. I have mentioned many times in the conversations I have had with President Trump, phone calls where he has suggested on several occasions or has said, we offer you a military intervention from the United States in Mexico, whatever you need to combat criminal groups. But I have told him on all occasions that we can collaborate, that they can help us with the information they have, but that we operate in our own territory.
Mexico issued travel advisories, summoned the US ambassador, and began rallying diplomatic support to push back against what it sees as a dangerous escalation. Such actions risk destabilizing bilateral relations, disrupting trade, and provoking a broader regional backlash. At home, Trump supporters hail the move as bold and necessary, a long overdue crackdown on cartels that have operated with impunity for decades. They see it as a defense of American lives and borders, but critics see it as a dangerous precedent. They argue that launching military strikes without congressional approval violates the US Constitution. Human rights groups, too, have condemned operations, especially after reports of civilian casualties in Caribbean raids. The US Congress has not authorized these strikes, yet the operations continue, raising questions about executive overreach and the erosion of checks and balances. Some fear that Trump's actions could open the door for future presidents to use military force unilaterally, bypassing the legislative branch entirely. In Colombia, Trump has made it clear that he supports forceful action against cocaine production and trafficking networks. US naval forces are now intercepting vessels suspected of carrying narcotics from Colombian shores. In Venezuela, the campaign is already underway. Since September 2025, US forces have conducted strikes on ships allegedly tied to cartel-affiliated groups with links to the Maduro regime. The Trump administration frames these actions as part of a broader counter-narcotic strategy, one that doesn't stop at borders.
Dialogue. Call. Yes. Peace. Yes. War. No. Never, never war.
He's done tremendous damage to our country, primarily because of drugs, but really because we have that problem with other countries too. But more than any other country, the release of prisoners into our country has been a disaster. He's emptied his jails. Others have done that also. He has not been good to the United States. So we'll see what happens. At a certain period of time, I'll be talking to him.
Venezuelan's opposition leader and Nobel Prize peace winner Maria Corina Machado released a manifesto declaring that Venezuela stands on the threshold of a new era and demanding accountability for crimes against humanity committed under Maduro's government.
Okay, in Venezuela.
What we are asking for is that those structures that are in place that have plundered the country and left a trail of death and pain be dismantled. Maduro currently has the opportunity to move forward with a peaceful transition.
The regional fallout is growing. Venezuela and Mexico have condemned the strikes, warning that they violate international norms and threaten regional stability. Colombia, while more cautious, is watching closely, aware that its cooperation with the US could be tested. Diplomats across Latin America are scrambling to assess what this new doctrine means. Is it a temporary surge or the beginning of a new era in US foreign policy? Politically, Trump's strategy is resonating with parts of the American electorate. His framing of the drug crisis as a war and the cartels as enemy combatants has galvanized support among voters who feel the federal government has failed to protect them. But the strategy is also polarizing. Legal experts, former diplomats, and military veterans warn that the long-term consequences could be severe. They argue that military force alone cannot dismantle cartels that are deeply embedded in local economies, politics, and communities. The question remains, is this the right way to fight it? Can airstrikes and naval patrols solve a problem rooted in poverty, corruption, and demand? Or will they simply push the problem deeper underground while igniting new conflicts abroad? Trump's war on cartels is more than a policy. It's a paradigm shift. It blurs the lines between law enforcement and warfare, between domestic crisis and foreign intervention. As the world watches and allies grow uneasy, one thing is certain: the battle lines have been redrawn, and the consequences, intended or not, are only beginning to unfold. Earlier this week, an armed group stormed a government boarding school in northwest Nigeria. The school was located in Maga town in Kebbi State. It was in the early hours of November 17, around 4 a.m. They first engaged the night duty police in a gunfight. In the meantime, they scaled the perimeter fence, entered into the hostel, and abducted 25 schoolgirls at gunpoint. The school's vice principal, Hassan Yakubu Makuku, was shot dead while resisting them. Another staff member, who was probably the security guard, was wounded with a gunshot. He later died in hospital. Police described the attackers as bandits who were heavily armed and coordinated. This incident was not random. It is part of a growing crisis across northern Nigeria, where kidnappings of school children, by armed gangs have become common. But why are schoolgirls targeted? And what lies at the root of this violence? Let's connect the dots. First, we need to understand what motivates these kidnappings. Experts say ransom demands are at the heart of it. Kidnapping has become, for many of these bandit groups, a highly profitable criminal business. For example, school children, especially girls, draw public sympathy. That sympathy brings pressure on the government to act, and the government is left with no choice but to bow to their demands. However, the Nigerian government has banned ransom payments. Over time, criminal gangs have built up powerful networks. Some of these groups now make money not just from ransom, but from farms, mines, and other illicit sources. There is another reason why schools are chosen, and that is vulnerability. Many of these schools are located in remote or forested areas where there is poor security and little state presence. Armed groups use nearby forests as hideouts. When they abduct students, they can move them away quickly. And they go beyond the reach of inefficient or overstretched security forces. Now, listen to the horrifying testimony of the vice principal's wife.
As they entered, they pulled their guns to shoot him. He pleaded, "Don't shoot me, allow me to stand up." Then they pulled the trigger and shot him. As he fell, I immediately rushed to him. But they pointed a gun at me and said, "If you touch him, we will shoot you."
This shows how brutal these attacks can be. The Kebbi abduction echoes a dark history. Remember the 2014 Chibok kidnapping by Boko Haram. Over 270 girls were kidnapped from their school. While many escaped or were released, some never returned. But there is a shift. Unlike Boko Haram's ideological campaign, many of today's kidnappings are driven by money, not religion. These armed groups, often locally called bandits, started with cattle theft or raids, but over the years, they evolved into full-blown kidnapping syndicates. As news of the Kebbi kidnapping spread, parents waited anxiously. Some had already lost hope. Others held on, desperate. Thankfully, 2 of the abducted girls did escape. They ran into nearby farmland and made it out, but most remain missing. The state government, however, responded. Security forces, military units, and local vigilantes were deployed to comb forests and suspected hideouts.
The unfortunate thing has already happened. They have abducted our children. We give them our words that we will do everything possible to ensure that their children are being rescued.
Experts say the root causes of the problem run deep. First, there is poverty and unemployment. In northwest Nigeria, many young people see no hope. Jobs are scarce, education is limited. For some, joining criminal groups seems to be the only or one of the few available paths. Analysts say 63% of Nigerians in some of these regions live in multi-dimensional poverty. When banditry becomes more profitable than farming or legal work, crime wins out. Then there is weak governance and corruption. Many of these remote communities feel abandoned. Security forces are overstretched. Intelligence is often poor, and responses to attacks are slow. Reports show that some governments have even offered amnesty deals or other incentives to repentant bandits, which underlines long-term justice. The geography of ungoverned areas is also an important factor. Dense forests, poor infrastructure, and scattered rural settlements make controlling territory difficult. Armed groups exploit this, using forests as hideouts and staging ground for attacks. And of course, ideological extremism also plays its part. Groups like Boko Haram still operate in parts of Nigeria. The word Boko Haram means Western education is forbidden. While some kidnappings are purely criminal, others like Boko Haram have ideological roots, targeting girls to disrupt Western education. The worst thing is many kidnappers are never caught. Their operations remain profitable. When ransom negotiations succeed, the money they make encourages more attacks. The impact is heavy. Parents become afraid and stop sending children, especially girls, to school. Education suffers. Long-term trauma grips communities. With each such kidnappings, fear spreads. Even schools don't seem to be safe anymore. The abduction of 25 schoolgirls in Kebbi State is a stark reminder of a much larger crisis. It stems from a mix of everything, be it poverty, weak governance, or the lack of opportunity. And if Nigeria is to break the cycle, it has to address not just the kidnappings, but the conditions that make them possible. Most importantly, we must remember, every child deserves a safe environment to grow. That's all we have in this edition of Connecting the Dots. We'll see you next week with more raging issues. Until then, it's goodbye from all of us in the Delhi newsroom. This is Mark Lin signing off. Take care and stay safe.